think it's time for a live demonstration. So I am going to go directly to the software. So this is how a project space looks like in eToolLCD, with your project name here, your various tabs here where you can define your project details, the lifecycle modules, indicators, some site characteristics, and we'll talk about the quality checks later. And then we have the different structures, and within the structures we have the different designs. So for this purpose, I have created an empty BREEAM training structure. So a structure is meant to be a building basically, and you can add as many buildings as you want within the same project. So a project is pretty much like a development consisting of more than one buildings or infrastructure developments as well. So this is how the structure level looks like, where you can define your construction scope, the energy and water scope, and add collaborators in order to allow other users from your organization to contribute to your LCA model. And this is how a design looks like. This is a design that I've prepared, and it's completely empty. And I'm going to start basically building an LCA model here, so that you can see how you can add various templates and like build your model quite easily and quickly. So I'll click on Add Template, and we could start with some concrete for the framing. Concrete. You can see there are various templates already there. We can start with that. Let's say we have 1,000 cubic meters of that. And then we can continue adding, let's say, a floor, which is a concrete floor. Again, I will type concrete and look for upper floor systems. We could use that one, I guess. Yeah. We can say we have 10,000 square meters of this slab. We can add a few more items. I'm not going to build the whole structure, obviously, because we have some time constraints as well. But I'll just add a couple of more. We can add a substructure element. Let's say a ground floor slab. Ground floor reinforced concrete. Yeah, I guess that should be okay. Let's say that we have 200 cubic meters of this, and we can also add some hard landscaping as well. So we can type landscaping and add some concrete paving probably to start with. Yeah, concrete paving on aggregate subbase, and let's say we have 2,000 square meters of that. So every single of those elements has all the information we need in terms of material. So if we go to the templates tab and go into, let's say, yeah, the landscape concrete paving on aggregate subbase, there will be some nesting templates. One for the concrete paving and one for the subbase, and then inside this template there will be some individual materials. In this case, it's quite a single one. So this is how it actually works with the templates. So in order to save time, I'm going to switch to the completed baseline option. Again, yeah, don't criticize me for the numbers. I deliberately chose to use some rough numbers here. Obviously, it's not a quite a realistic model, but it has pretty much everything you would expect to see in an LCA model. It has the facade walls, it has the floors, structural framing, foundation, hard landscaping, roof, etc. So this is our baseline option, and this is going to be our superstructure option 1, our substructure option 1, and our hard landscaping option 1. So there are various ways to go to keep going from here. One way could be to basically clone these designs and keep making changes, and then we create all the different design options. And another way would be to use our recommendations workflow, in which case we again clone our design and keep track of all the changes we do in our model. So by doing that, in the end, we can build a final model with all our recommendations incorporated, and we will be able to basically export an automatic report from the reports tab, which we could then use as our options appraisal summary document, which is mentioned in the BREEAM manual. So if you go back to the manual and to the specific requirements, where is it? Yeah, 6 credit superstructure. We have the comparison with the benchmark, and then we have the options appraisal. So one of the requirements is to I seem to forget where exactly it's mentioned. There should be an item here talking about creating an options appraisal summary document, which is basically a report where you discuss all the options you have taken into consideration, your discussions with the design team, the decisions, and all this stuff, and you submit that document, that report, together with the actual results. So back to the software. We said we have the baseline option, so we could just go and clone that and say we're going to model the superstructure option 2, and that is just an LCA scenario. And we could try and use the recommendations workflow. It's not obviously it's not mandatory to use that, but in eTool we believe that it helps the LCA practitioner document all the changes that they do and present them in a nice linear improvement way. The recommendations, how the recommendations work is that basically you can write your own strategy here, which is basically a description of what you're going to change in this design in your baseline design in order to get to option 2. So in this case, I was thinking to say that it could be a result of a discussion with a structural engineer, for example, and we ended up that we're going to assess changing the structural grid from 15 by 15 to, let's say, 12 by 12. And yeah, obviously, yeah, you need to write a few more things, but that should be enough for now. So you can click on the record. Sorry, yeah, that is a materials improvement, which will be the case always in BREEAM 2018 because it's a material only LCA. We're not looking into the operational energy. So if I hit record, the software has started now to keep track of all the changes I'm doing. So if I go back to the templates and click on this template, which is 1,000 cubic meters. So based on my discussion with the structural engineer and the new quantities that have given me based on this strategy, we could say that instead of 1,000 cubic meters, we could end up with probably the wrong template, because it's mostly the floors that will be affected in such a scenario. Yeah, concrete slabs. Instead of having a 300 millimeter concrete slab because of the reduced span, I can actually delete that template completely instead of changing anything over there. So I'm going to delete that and add a new template which should be a thinner one. So if I go to the upper floors, let's say 201 probably. Yeah, let's say this one. I would have again 10,000 square meters. Save. This is added down here. And if I click on stop recording and save that, it will drop me back to the recommendations tab. And it says that with this option, you have saved 700,000 kilograms of CO2 equivalent. You can also use actually these to track your changes, and you can also go to your details tab and say that I want to compare this design with a benchmark, which in this case would be the probably this one. And by going back to the recommendations, it also gives you a percentage improvement based on your benchmark. So that should be option 2. And what I can keep doing then is to clone that and say Superstructure option 3. That's again that's an LCA scenario. Hit to the clone button. And what we could do in this case, let's think about a change. We could change the flat slabs to hollow core slabs. So what we can do then is go to recommendations, because this is a different design option now. This is not applicable anymore. So I can just delete that and add a new recommendation and say hollow core slabs, and describe here that using hollow core slabs you can save up to 45% of RC quantity. And yeah, with a better description as before. That's a materials template. And if you click record, what you need to do then is go back to templates again and basically replace your previous template with a hollow core template. In this case, that would be something like that. 10,000 square meters. This is added down here, so I will need to delete yeah, the one above, and stop recording, and that will drop me back to the recommendations page and tell me that, you know, with this strategy you save this amount of carbon emissions. in the same way, we can do superstructure option 4, and then use the option 4 as a baseline to start playing a little bit with the substructure and hard landscaping options. So the process is that, yeah, you start with the superstructure and continue with the substructure and landscaping, performing one change at a time. So every single option has actually not necessarily one change. You can do as many changes as you want, but obviously you have to describe all those changes in your recommendations and in the Model 1 submission tool, as we will see later. So if I go back to the completed structure, so I have created a baseline design here, which is the one we showed, an option 2 for superstructure, option 3, option 4. I think at option 4 here, what I changed was, I basically changed the building material from concrete to CLT, and leaving just some of the concrete quantities for the core, for the structural core. And then I used this option 4, and starting developing the substructure and hard landscaping. So from option 4, you go directly to option 3, which is which can be either superstructure or hard landscaping. And the reason I'm skipping option 1 and 2 for the substructure is because the baseline design is your option 1 and option 2 for substructure and hard landscaping. Because if we go to the Model 1 submission tool in the concept design tab, it will tell you that you need to make sure that substructure and hard landscaping option 1 is a substructure option, and the option 2 is a hard landscaping option. So yeah, I tend to say that they made a very good job in complicating things a little bit by combining the substructure and hard landscaping, but that's the way it is anyway. So we just need to be cautious of that and name all the results appropriately. So having this in mind, we can go back to the software and go and create our second substructure option, which is basically substructure hard landscaping option 3. And I'm mentioning here in parentheses that this is a substructure option. So what I did change that in exactly the same way is I removed all the quantities from the foundation and replaced it, or actually I reduced the quantities from the foundation with the quantities I would have if I had pile foundation instead of pad foundation. So if you go there, I have added a small description here, and you can also add some nice pictures over there showing or highlighting what exactly you're changing. You can use your Revit model to highlight those elements and show them here. I recorded that in the same way, and it showed that I can get this amount of CO2 savings as well. And going back to the structure, I used option 3 to then start playing with the hard landscaping options. So substructure and hard landscaping option 4 is basically my second hard landscaping option. So going there again, the recommendations, I basically created this recommendation. Apologies. Yeah, in the original baseline design, I used an asphalt template for the whole site. So the concrete paving came as a second option. So this is what I'm saying here. In this strategy, asphalt is replaced with concrete paving on aggregate sub base. I recorded that. I went to the templates and basically changed the asphalt with concrete paving. And in a similar fashion, let me just go through option 5 and 6 as well. What I did here was, yeah, I then changed the concrete paving with reclaimed stone. And I think in the end, option 6, I changed the sub-base with recycled aggregates to show the impact of that as well. Yep. And that should be the end of your stage 2 study, because you have 6 substructure and hard landscaping options and 4 superstructure ones. Now, what you have to do then is go into each design one by one and go to reports, create a new report, say it's a BREEAM 2018 report, and assign the right name. And this is quite important because if you go to the file structure of the submission tool, this is the main Excel file, which is the one I showed a bit earlier. And everything else is actually the results that are being exported from the LCA tool. And this Excel file is basically linked with all this. So it is looking for the right name. So if you, instead of superstructure option 1, you just say super 1, it simply won't be able to link. So that's quite important. So going back to software, this is our superstructure option 1. I can download it, done. But in the same time, it's also my substructure and hard landscaping option 1 and option 2, because option 1 was the first substructure option and option 2 is the first hard landscaping option. So I download all these 3 from the baseline option, and I keep doing the same thing for all the other designs. So superstructure option 2, obviously reports, new report, and that will be the superstructure option 2. Yeah, I'm not going to go into through all of the designs. Instead, I have created a folder here, which should be the exported results. So these are all the results that I downloaded from the software. I can copy them and go to my empty folder here with in the original Mono1 folder with all the files as I downloaded them from the BREEAM projects website, and I can simply replace them. So all these files are now replaced. What I need to do before I open that is that I have to decide which of those options is basically my selected option, which is going to be superstructure benchmark. So in this case, we can assume that it's going to be option 4. So I'm going to make a copy of that and copy that name. And in the same time, delete that one, which is empty, and rename that one. So now option 4 is there as option 4 for the options appraisal credits, but it's also there as a benchmark option for the benchmark comparison credit. So once you have done that, you are able to open the main submission tool. Yeah, I already have it opened. I'm just gonna close this one and open that one. So it will usually come up with a huge warning here, warning you that you have to keep the naming convention the same as here, otherwise it will not be able to identify the results. So we will need to hide this one. Okay, and it will pretty much ask you to correct some of those things. So we can start by saying that hold on. Yeah, first question, that would be an office building. It's not a simple building, and let's say 10,000 square meters. It's taking some time. Okay, it asks you for the options appraisal. Yes, we did it. Substructure option appraisal, we did it. Core billing services, we did not do that. And the tool we use for the options appraisal during concept design, it is eToolLCD with the impact database. Soon, I hope in a matter of weeks, we should be able to see here in eToolLCD default database, which you would then be able to use for the core services as well. And it gives you a warning here saying superstar comparison with the BREEAM benchmark during concept design must be done for this building type. So there must be a question somewhere. Yeah, this one. Yes, we did the benchmark comparison using this tool, and then it will start populating all the results. The comparison, when we use the impact database, is done using the BRE echo points. I'm not entirely sure, but I suspect that in the case of the eTool default database, it will be the global warming potential indicator instead of the echo points. And in the meantime, you will have to say which option of those four you actually decided to keep progressing with stage 3 and stage 4. I will say option 4, and then you have to say what are the reasons you didn't go with the other options. Yeah, you can say whichever of those represents the actual reason, basically. And yeah, you'll have to say that the option data file and the description change. But yeah, the option data file and the description of changes it is completed. So that should be over here. So in here, you will need to basically describe what changes you did. So by using these IDs here, 1, 2, 3, and 4, you can go to 1, 2, 3, and 4 and say at the frame at ID number 2, I change the structural grid from 15 by 15 to 18 by 18. If you also did some changes at the upper floors of the same design options or external walls, you write that down as well. And then at ID 3, which is going to be the superstructure option 3, you do the same and so on. And that should be the substructure and hard landscaping options. So yeah, for now, I would just say that we already did that. And it asks you if ID 4 is the same as ID B1 submitted for superstructure. And the answer is yes, because that's what we did just before here with this file. And then, yeah, you do see a similar thing with the substructure and hard landscaping options. You basically say that this is the baseline substructure, the baseline hard landscaping. So I remember this one is my second option for superstructure. So I'm going to choose that and say that this is a substructure. And then I can say that I chose this hard landscaping option and let it know that this is a hard landscaping option. So this is quite important so that the tool knows which elements it's going to filter out, because basically when you export the results in each of those, it actually exports pretty much the whole LCA model. So the filtering of the element is not done by the software itself. It's done by the Matter1 tool, based on the risk classification code you have assigned. So in this case, because it's a superstructure option, it will ignore this item here, these items here that are hard landscaping, and anything else that is not relevant, like these things over here. So that's why it's important to tell it what exactly it is. That's hard landscaping as well. That is hard landscaping, and that is substructure. And let's say we didn't choose it for those reasons. And it will actually tell you that based on what you have submitted, you're going to achieve, yep, it should be here, but it gives you an error because you didn't fill all these things. So it basically asks you to confirm that all these things have been done, including the date that you submitted those results to the BRE. So after doing that, it says you that based on what you have already done here, you can achieve 5 credits, which I suppose would be 2 credits from the benchmark comparison, because basically we use timber, which in the impact database, it has a quite negative impact in magnitude. And then you can also get 2.65 credits for the options appraisal from superstructure, and 1 credit from the substructure and hard landscaping. And at the technical design stage, then you can go there and in a similar way actually submit all those files. So I have already created some other design options for stage 4, which should be right here. So training is a structure we're working on. And yes, I have created superstructure option 1, 2, and 3, which is the minimum amount of options you need to do to get the credits for the options appraisal stage 4. So in this case, I used the selected option from stage 2, and I changed the little quantity of concrete that remained for the core, for example. I changed it from regular concrete to 30% fly ash concrete, and I recorded that, and I then cloned it and developed 2 more options. I think this one, it was I changed the external walls basically, and in the other one I changed the aluminum fins with timber fins. And in a similar way, I exported those results back to this folder. So I've got those results here, which are populated, as you can see. I copied them, and you can, after I close that one actually, you can copy them here, replace them, and you will again have to define which of those 3 options is the one that you selected. So that would probably option 3. It's not necessary to always select the last option or the option that has the lowest impact, because for the BREEAM purposes, you only have to prove that you did this options appraisal exercise. So you're free basically to select the worst environmentally option, which doesn't sound right, but this is how it is. And I can then copy that, delete the empty one, and rename that one. And if I open that one now, And yeah, I'm in the technical design tab. I would again have to fill in all these details. I'm not going to spend time on this one actually. And it will give you the final score, which we can see in the pre-filled Excel file I've got here. So based on that, we can achieve 7 credits overall, 6 credits for the superstructure and 1 credit for the substructure. And yeah, hopefully in a couple of weeks, you will be able to target also the MEP equipment options appraisal credits. So that would go to 8 credits, including the LCA and LC alignment. You could take it up to 9. And yeah, with the free third-party verification service we provide to our users, you can get up to 10 credits for module 1. Let me see, actually. Yeah, we did the brief user interface 2, the baseline option. We didn't talk about the third-party verification process enough. So basically, after you have created your first option, which is basically the model that reflects your design at the time of modeling, the best practice for this is to apply for certification and click certify. So when submitting for a certification, we will get a notification that you have applied for certification. We're going to open the certification request and assign it to one of our members. And we will start going through all these quality checks that are needed to make sure that all the requirements, the BREEAM requirements, as well as the EN 15978 requirements are met. So there are several quality checks here that we're going to check. If there is any inconsistencies, we're going to write a few comments here, like, please, could you have a look at that and change, do the appropriate changes. It's pretty much a nice way of, having a chat over about your designs here in this section. So we have the project quality checks, and then we have the quality checks in the structure level, and obviously we have them in the design level as well, right here. So after we have made sure that everything looks fine, we're going to certify it, and you will be able then to clone this design and keep creating all the other design options. And we will be there to certify all these options as you go. And yeah, in the end of the process, you'll have all your options certified, and we can, when we finish our certification process, we are always producing our certifier review statement, which is going basically to be a summary of all our correspondence in the quality checks, which you can submit to the BRE as proof that a third-party verification has been completed for your designs.